you know, it's bad enough with the tax rate flood and then trying to get back up on your feet. Of course, VFW was hit hard. We had many residents who were hit hard twice. But we all hung together. And like you say, the troops arrived to help y'all and help get this building going. And on behalf of the city, we're so proud of this building. This is the first time I've been in it since you got your stuff in here. I walked through it when it was a little dirty on the floor and everything else, but you could vision what this building was going to become. And so there's a dedication of the members of this post and others who helped them, and the construction workers, and Casey and Byron and all of their work that they did to make sure that this building gets back together. And today, look at it. It's great. Even granite countertops in the kitchen. Okay, so it's really great. It's a great honor to be here to see these improvements finished. The people here tonight, and we thank you so much for being here. And to y'all, and everything that y'all done to help bring this post back up, it was a team effort, and thank you so much.
We will now have a special presentation from John Lundquist, the Texas State Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. John, would you please come forward? John came all the way from Dallas today. I picked him up at Hobby, and he's flying back tonight, so we're going to have to take him back. Now, let me move over here. I don't know what you've got planned.
Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 9182 of Katy, Texas. Whereas the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 9182 have great admiration and utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country and the community in the armed forces. And whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in present use and was initially created as a badge of military merit by George Washington in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart was the first American Service Award or decoration made available to the common soldier and specifically awarded to the members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded or paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat with a declared enemy of the United States of America. And whereas many men and women in uniform have given their lives while serving in the armed forces, and whereas, therefore, May 17, 2018 has officially been designated as a day in the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 9182, to remember and recognize veterans who are recipients of the Purple Heart Medal. Now therefore, I, John Lundquist, Commander of the Department of Texas Military Order Purple Heart, do hereby proclaim the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 9182, a Purple Heart Post.
Okay. Felix or Peyton's already promoted me. I'll be the state commander on Saturday, so hopefully, right? I'd like to introduce the following Purple Heart recipients. You met National Junior Vice Commander Felix Garcia.
And also a member of this post.
National Inspector Everett Kelly. Department of Texas Judge Advocate James Gully. Department of Texas Past State Commander Sam Luna. Chapter 723 Commander Michael Matthews. 723 members, and then all Purple Heart recipients. I'd like to thank Commander Mastrangelo. I'm Polish, so we get along pretty good. And I talked to him on the phone. I'm from upstate New York, so I don't have that strong accent, I've been here too many years. Thank past State Commander Peyton Lumpkin, post members of VFW Post 6970, and all veterans who have served our country. What does it mean when a post is recognized as a Purple Heart post? When the VFW Post 9182 is recognized, we are remembering and honoring all Purple Heart recipients, living or dead. We're honoring all veterans of this post who have served in the military. We're taking a moment to honor George Washington and his significant contribution to our country. Last thing I'll leave you with, I organized a chapter in the Dallas-Fort Worth area we call DFW Mid-Cities, Chapter 1513. It was named for a Bible verse, John 15:13. I feel it's very fitting for those who all been in combat and returned. The verse states, "A greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Again, thank you, and the entire post. This time the mayor will get his sign. You should have got 2 years ago. Katy became a Purple Heart City. Do we have that? And we got the sign for the VFW. And then we got the reserve sign.
And if you're a Purple Heart recipient, you'll be able to park on this, so. Hey, Sam, you taking pics? Sam? Yes, Lord? We really appreciate it. Appreciate it.
We will now have a special presentation by General George Old Blood and Guts Patton Jr., who's really Dennis hair. He still looks good to be 133. But give us a couple of seconds to set the stage. General?
This thing work? What an honor it is to be here. You know, I was given a tour when I came through here and I saw the museum. And I was reminded of what the good book says. It says that when you pass through here, you are to be in the world, but not of the world. You know what that means? Ever thought about that? You're only given a certain time in life to live. And you should make the most of it. Because you're just passing through. But when you see a museum, you look at those that have passed through before you. I'm going to take you back 100 years because it's a history that's forgotten. It doesn't need to be forgotten. We were in the 100th anniversary of World War I. Patton had the great honor to command tanks in World War I. But let me tell you a little bit of that, because the story is not often heard. And I want you to know it, because there's some soldiers that need to be remembered. In late 1917, we had formed an army, first armies we'd ever formed. And they had looked at Europe and they saw that they were having tanks. They had these big British tanks they called mother tanks, and the French had these little Renault tanks. And General Pershing says, we need to do something with that. So Patton was a captain, and he was serving in Pershing's headquarters as a paper pusher. And he realized real quick that wasn't going anywhere. And they asked him, would you like to have a chance to develop tanks? He didn't know more what a tank was than you did if you were brand new in any service at all. He said, well, I'll give it a try. But he had that thought that just maybe he could make something out of it. Now, a French Renault tank had two people in it. It either had a Hotchkiss gun or a 37mm French short cannon in it. And we knew absolutely nothing about those tanks. So he was given the assignment to go over to the French and climb into those tanks and go to those schools they speak French. So that was a little easier. And he spent a month, him and an artillery officer, trying to figure out just what you're going to do with these tanks. How do you run them? Where do they go? And he's developed a plan. It was a 58-page plan. He did it in Persian. And he said in there that he thought that they would be a good army for service. They were slow. They went about 4 to 5 miles an hour. They had an engine in them that didn't have a battery. It had magneto. And the only way you could start it was get to the rear of the tank and crank it. It's the only way to start. Now think about that if it died in the middle of battle. And it did, quite a few. And it had a small liter tank on it, so it ran out of gas really quickly. And he was to take people who knew nothing about a tank and train them. Think about that a minute. What's it take? So he took those tanks and he applied to get them in, and they had more men than they had tanks. For the first 4 months, he had 10 tanks with no guns. And he had one 37mm cannon that he mounted on a wooden platform and one Hotchkiss machine gun. And they practiced shooting. And they had a wooden base, and they had it on springs, and they moved it up and down, and they would shoot because I figured that would be like it being war. They had no idea what they were going to do. Pershing had ordered to the States, he wanted 2,000 of these Renault tanks, and he also wanted the British to have heavy tanks, and had them assigned. Well, the bureaucracy in Washington in World War I was just like the bureaucracy it was in World War II and today. It was slow. So not one single tank was delivered to Pershing at any time or place that he could use one. So he called the French, and he asked Pat to go over there and said, we need some tanks. And they promised 1,000 tanks. We got 144 of them. And he didn't get the 144th one. In fact, he didn't get about 100 of them until the day before the battle in September. And these men took these tanks, many of them never actually had a tank to drive with their own command. There's only 2 of the tanks. And rolled them off of railroad tracks onto the field and went into battle. They arrived on the evening, and they were in the battle in by 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning in September 1918. Of that 144 tanks that went in, they were knocked out, as you might imagine. They had engine troubles, and the men had to get out. They had to walk along the sides, and you couldn't hear. And the drivers, in order to get the tank, because it's loud, if they wanted to turn to the right, he tapped the driver on the right. If you wanted to turn to the left, he tapped the driver on the left. If he wanted to stop, I'm sure he went like that. And there was quite a few words said, "Stop!" Can you imagine? And had to be heard over that. But did they show themselves well? They did wonderfully. They took something brand new and they fought with it and they achieved success. Out of the 144 tanks, so you can double the amount of people in them, there was 25 Distinguished Service Crosses, and there was 2 Medal of Honors. And I brought this up to tell you about one of the Medal of Honor winners. I wish I could call his name right now, but I can't. He was in this tank, him and his buddy. They had been fighting. And they came across a German entrenchment where they dug a huge hole in it filled with water. And they didn't see it because the smoke was everywhere, and they were also trying to escape the gas. And they ran into that tank, into that trough, and the tank began to submerge. And one of them said to the other, "Only one of us is going to get out alive." And he pushed his friend out. You heard it a minute ago about what the Bible says about no man, but he gives up his life for another. You pass through this life. What you do in this life is up to you. How you serve, how you believe, how you think, what you do. It takes every single person to make our country great. It takes politicians to get in there and fight for what they believe is correct. It's hard to be a politician at any time. Roosevelt had a tough time. Truman had a tough time. It's never an easy task. And we go on and on our politicians because we don't like what they say, we don't like what they do. But we're running into the point where someone has to serve, someone has to stand up, and someone has to fight for what is right. In my day, the soldier was not considered a great calling. But boy, was it a great calling. You better believe it was. But they never had the money. Did you realize that we went into World War II with World War I gear? We had a 100,000 man army because the Great War was fought as the last war. The Great War. There would be no other wars. We had one peace. Think about that. We had one peace. And the veteran standing here will tell you that was a crock. We didn't win the peace. We just set the stage for the next war and the next war because we didn't finish the wars. But we had what it took. We had the men and women who were willing to stand up and say, I'll serve, I'll go, I'll do what needs to be done. So when you go through those museums back there, think of it as they were passing through this world, they had a chance to make a difference. Some very young. Some went through it. Some passed away. Some were killed in the line of duty. But they're all part of our American history, our American heritage, and all that we were about. Because